In this After Effects tutorial, I'll show you 5 simple expressions that save your life as a motion designer. All these animations were created using these expressions. Speed up your workflow, automate your animations with expressions, make adjustments quickly, and create stuff that isn't even possible with keyframes. Hey everyone, my name is Manuel, and let's dive right in with the first expression. The time expression creates continuous and linear animations. Let's add an expression to the rotation property of this shape, hold Alt while clicking on the stopwatch symbol. Then add time to the expression field. You can also choose it from this menu here that pops up. Press Enter to select it. By default, the rotation value increases by 1 degree per second. Multiply this value, let's say by 50, and it increases faster. You can also use it to quickly animate the evolution properties of effects, like the turbulent noise effect, to create textures. Let's add time asterisk to 100, and you get this smooth animation. Add the posterized time expression above to reduce the frame rate. Let's set it to 8 frames per second inside the parentheses. Make sure to add a semicolon at the end of each line, except the last one, and it feels more handmade. Or the turbulent displace effect. I've added it to a text layer. Let's reduce the amount, animate the evolution property with an expression. Time asterisk 500. Again, in combination with the posterized time expression, let's set it to 8 frames per second again. You can quickly create scribbled text. Duplicate the text layer and change the seed random number of the effect in evolution options to make sure it has a different animation pattern. The wiggle expression seems complicated at first, but it actually isn't. To start with, it needs just 2 values, the frequency and the amplitude. Let's open the position property of this round shape, add an expression to it, and add the wiggle expression. In parentheses, we add 1,300. It means 1 time per second, the shape animates max 300 pixels above and below the start value. In this case, the comp center. You can change the start value anytime and move it across the screen. Let's say we want to create particles, a lot more of these shapes, and you want to be able to adjust the frequency and amplitude for all of them at the same time. To begin with, we add a null object and name it controls, because we use slider controls to quickly adjust the 2 values for all particles. We go to Effects, Expression Controls, and add 2 slider controls. Let's name the first one Frequency, the second one Amplitude. And let's adjust the slider range for both sliders. Right-click on the first one, edit value from 0 to 5, should be fast enough. And for the amplitude, from 0 to 1500. Then we replace the 2 values with links to the 2 slider controls. Let's lock this view up here to keep it visible. When we select a different layer, select the first number and use the pick whip tool to link the frequency slider control. Then we select the second number and link to the amplitude slider control. Now it is quick and easy to adjust the behavior of a lot of particles at the same time. As a more advanced version, you could create your own particles rig with a lot of controls, like the opacity, shape size, and influences like gravity or wind. That's one of the lessons in my expressions course. The link is in the description. To answer a question you probably have, yes, you can loop the wiggle expression. Get my 50+ pages long expression sheet. It explains the most important expressions and how to use them. The link is in the description as well. The random expression generates random values each frame. Let's add an expression to the opacity property, random, and 100 in parentheses. It creates a random opacity value between 0 and 100 for each frame. Let's add 50, 100 inside the parentheses. It now creates a random value between 50 and 100. Let's add the posterized time expression above it to slow it down. Posterized time and 8 frames per second inside the parentheses. Don't forget the semicolon. And it looks like that. If you add it to a property with 2 dimensions like the scale property, the result needs to be an array. Define the values for the 2 dimensions separately with variables. var x equals random and 100, 500 in parentheses. Semicolon. var y equals random and 50, 5000 in parentheses. Semicolon at the end. So you can define different behaviors for the width and height. Then add those 2 variables in an array, square brackets and x, y inside the 2 variables. We add the posterized time expression again to slow it down. And let's reduce 5000 to 1000. You can use the expression to randomly delay animations or to create sequences with random shapes. The loop expression is pretty self-explanatory. It loops keyframes. I've animated this rotation with 3 keyframes. There are 2 versions of the expression. Let's add an expression to the rotation property, the loop in expression. It loops before the first keyframe, then stops. And the loop out expression. It loops beyond the last keyframe. The loop out expression is what you'll use most of the time. On top of that, there are loop types and modifiers. Check out the expression sheet for more about that. The linear expression is extremely useful. It relates a string of input values to a string of new output values, meaning you can control different animations with one slider control. Sounds mysterious? Let's look at an actual example. I've added 2 round shapes, placed them next to each other. Shape size, 500 pixels each. First, we use the anchor point tool to move both anchor points to the comp center. Hold Command if you use a Mac, otherwise Control to let it snap. Next, we add a null object for the slider control that controls all animations. Let's name it Controls. And go to Effect, Expression Controls, add a slider control. Then, we link both scale properties to the slider control. Again, we lock the view to keep the window open. Then, link both properties. Let's take a look at the expressions After Effects created. Temp is the variable, the placeholder for the slider value. Below, an array that holds the x and y value of the scale property. Both shapes behave exactly the same. We invert the bottom scale values, add 100 minus before both variables. Now the animations are inverted. To keep the shapes in place, we need to link the x positions of the shapes with the scale values. Let's open both position properties and separate the dimensions of both position properties because we only need the x positions of both shapes. We add an expression and define the input value. X equals whatever value the slider control indicates, semicolon at the end. Then we use a linear expression. Linear in parentheses x, comma, our input value, 0, 100, the min and max slider values. Then the new output values, comma, the min value 960 minus 250, half the shape width, 710, the min x position, comma, 960 plus 250, 1210, the max x position. We copy the expression and paste it to the other x position property. The size of the 2 shapes and the position of the 2 shapes is controlled by one slider control, while the slider range is mapped to the 2 x position values. It would be a lot more difficult to animate the 2 shapes with keyframes. Check out this playlist with lots more expressions videos. Thanks for watching this one. See you in the next one. Bye everyone.